know, I don't set these times. I'm just like you, I just show up. You know, they tell me what I do.
I feel like this is very balanced.
You got to know each other a little better. You want to build these.
I know, it's such a big crowd. Maybe we should have a work with Okay, I would like to call the annual budget hearing for the 2017-2018 school budget to order. Motion by Judy Mitchell and second by Laura Brown. Can everyone please stand for pledge of allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Farrell, can you please call for nominations for chairperson?
All right, and can I have a motion to nominate chairperson, please? Well, actually, I'm nominating Dr. Ferry as chairperson for the meeting. Have a second. Mrs. Crowe. Any other nominations for chairperson of the meeting? Motion to close the nominations. Mrs. Brony, second. Mrs. Fitchett. All in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. Then we need to vote then on Dr. Ferry's nomination as the chairperson of this particular meeting. May I have a motion? All in favor of Dr. Ferry? Mr. Curcio, second. Mrs. Brony, all in favor? Any opposed? Dr. Ferry, the floor is yours.
I'm announcing that the district clerk will act as clerk for the meeting. And I ask counsel for Governor Gaffney to please read the qualifications of the voter.
Good evening. In order to legally vote within the Sewanhaka Central High School District, a person must be a citizen of the United States, 18 years of age or older, a resident of the district for a period of at least 30 days immediately preceding the voting, and you need to register to vote. And you can register at your local components, elementary component districts.
Thank you. I ask Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations, Mr. Kevin O'Brien, to read the proposition for the 2017-2018 budget vote.
Resolved that the proposed budget of expenditures of Sewanhaka Central High School District of Elmont, Floral Park, Franklin Square, and New Hyde Park in the County of Nassau, New York, for the year 2017 through 2018 in the amount of $193,070,535, and for the purpose shown in the Statement of Estimated Expenditures adopted by the Board of Education, and this same hereby is approved, and the amount thereof shall be raised by a levy of a tax upon the taxable property within said Sewanhaka Central High School District, after first deducting the monies available from state aid and other sources as provided by law.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to present the budget. We'll put our PowerPoint up. I do want to let everyone know that the PowerPoint is on the website, as is the school report card, and the school report card has the detailed budget in it as well. Is the lighting good for you? with that?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. So this is the budget presentation, May 9th, 2017, for the Sewanhaka Central High School District. Board of Education is as listed. We would certainly like to thank the individuals involved in developing this budget, our building principals, department chair, coordinators, teachers, support staff, Board of Education, and Central Office Administration. Within this PowerPoint, we're going to review the budget, project the enrollment, our staffing, programs, materials, resources, capital improvements, review the technology plan, state aid, general fund revenue, total budget, and the elections. The enrollment, as you see here, is fairly stable. We're down to 66 students, but one thing to note is that the New Hyde Park Memorial has become the largest school district in the largest school in the district. 6 years ago, that was Elmont. So the Elmont enrollment is declining slightly. New Hyde Park enrollment is increasing slightly. One of the things I would like to mention as a side note to that, in terms of our staffing, and when we talk about staffing within this budget, there is no loss of staff, but we are going to reallocate staff so that New Hyde Park has additional staff members next year to address the enrollment growth. Once again, as in the past, this budget is student-centered. No student programs are impacted. We're very fortunate to be able to do that once again. And we always ask that central question, is this decision in the best interest of our students? The budget provides us with the staffing needs to meet programmatic and enrollment, program improvement and expansion where we can, resources to support programs, and facilities upgrades. So what is included in the budget? All of our mandated programs for our special needs students, absolute maintenance of current staff, educational programs, and co-curricular programs, so no programs are being impacted. Some program and curriculum development, capital improvements, and we'll talk about the capital improvements within the operational budget, which are in the amount of $300,000, and then phase 3 of the bond referendum and the energy performance contract. And our continued implementation of the student one-to-one program in technology. Continued implementation in teaming in grades 7 and 8 in all 5 high schools. Continued implementation of the integrated advanced program in grades 7 and 8, and transitioning to living environment in grade 8. Continued implementation of co-teaching in grades 7 through 10. Ongoing curriculum review and revision. One of the curricula that we're revising right away is the culinary arts curriculum, because we anticipate that the new edition at Sewanhaka will be open September 1st, and we'll be able to begin our CTE culinary arts program in the district for juniors. So that is one of the pieces of our program expansion. Implementation of formative curriculum-based assessments and maintenance of all current educational and co-curricular programs. The capital improvements, as I mentioned, include the completion of phase 3, the completion of the energy performance contract work, and projects in each of the 5 high schools totaling $300,000. That amount is significantly less than in the past due to the fact that we can get much accomplished within phase 3 and the EPC. We anticipate by next year this time, all of this work will be finished. At Elmont Memorial High School, and you'll see this in all 5 high schools, we're going to begin installation of a proprietary lock system. Right now we have many keys, all different keys, different classrooms. So we're going to start doing hallways at a time with a proprietary lock system, 1 key, and that key cannot be replicated. Particular to Elmont Memorial, we're going to replace the entrance to the large courtyard. Again, that's an energy savings response that's very important, and renovate 2 faculty restrooms. And we always include a contingency on these projects. At Floral Park, same thing with the lock system. We need to replace a vacuum condensate pump unit in the gym and remove some old pipe insulation in the main gymnasium. Once that occurs, Floral Park will be completely free of asbestos, or where there is asbestos, it will be encapsulated and managed. At H. Frank Carey High School, again, the lock system, the aluminum window panels around the school. Our folks will actually do that replacement because we can get much more done. And we're going to abate one of the asbestos floor tiles in room 224. At New Hyde Park Memorial, install proprietary lock system, finished completion of the replacement of the aluminum panels, and again, the contingency. And at Sewanhaka, again, the lock system, girls' locker room exterior door, and all of the safety glass in the classroom doors must be replaced to be brought up to code. At the CTE building, 2 exterior door replacements, and a $12,000 contingency at the central office. We're continually needing work on the air conditioning, heating, and plumbing system.
The revenue budget is made up of 2 parts, the state and then the local sources. The first part is the state aid. Our foundation aid for next year is $24,217,278. That is the only aid you see listed there that is not an expense-driven aid. Every aid after that has expense relation to it, so it's based on what we spent in the past years. Our transportation aid for next year is $3.7 million. High-cost excess aid, which is the aid that we get back on students we educate with high needs in the district. The private excess cost aid at $922,000. That is the same as high needs students. The cost of their education, aid we get back, but they're in private settings outside of the district. Our building aid is $4.1 million, which is a significant increase from last year, and that is based on the fact that phase 1 and 2 of the bond, those projects, the roofs, the fields, the asbestos and the crawl spaces, those final cost reports have been filed with the state, which is now generating building aid coming back to the district. Our BOCES aid is $1.3 million for next year. That is also an expense-driven aid on what we spent at BOCES last year. And other expense-driven aids are 1.7, which adds up from software aid, hardware aid, and textbook aid. The other portion of the revenue is the local portion, which is made up of the following categories. Our tax levy for next year is $42,757,183. I will go into that in further detail in another slide coming up. Pilots is $2.7 million. What that is payment in lieu of taxes, and that is related to, as you remember, the LIPA litigation that was in the news, where they wanted to come off the Nassau County property tax rolls. So now they're paying a pilot, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. So that amount to the district is $2.7 million. Our allocation of fund balance from the money that we project to be left over this year, we can put forward as revenue for next year to save on taxes, is $5.5 million. Reserves applied is money we're taking out of our restricted reserves for specific purposes of $2.1 million. Our miscellaneous revenue of $1.6 million is made up of several different categories, included our interest income, our fees that we charge, insurance recoveries, and Medicaid income we get. Transfer from capital is money left over in the capital fund from prior year's capital projects. As you recall, years ago, before we had the bond, they used to budget $3 million, $2 million, $1 million in capital projects. And when those projects were bid out and there was money left over due to very favorable bids, we had leftover money in the capital fund. And by law, we're allowed to bring that over and use that in the operating budget for the general fund. So we're going to save some more money there on the taxes. So our total revenue from local sources is $155 million, $307,827. So going back to the state aid, the changes in the state aid from last year, or the current year, 2016-17, $35,389,000. For next year, the final state budget gave us a run of state aid of $37,762,000. That shows a $2.3 million state aid increase. as I mentioned earlier, our building aid went up significantly due to the final cost reports that had been filed. That number went up on its own 2.5 million. Therefore, as you can see, in total, the state aid, the other state aid categories dropped slightly due to the significant increase in building aid. So again, to recap our revenue for next year, state aid, $37,762,000. Revenue from local sources, $155,307,000, and a total general fund budget of $193,070,535. The calculation of our tax levy limit for next year. The first thing we do is we take the levy for this year, which is $136,213,244. We then take the tax-based growth factor for this year with 1.0017. That is a number assigned to the district by New York State ORPS, the Office of Real Property and Taxation Services. And that is based on what they designate as addition of brick and mortar in the district. So we take that number, multiply the tax levy by that. We then add the pilot's receivable from the current year for the LICA pilot, 2.690, and we then add, or we subtract rather, the capital tax levy exclusion for this year, $32,994, and then we multiply that by the allowable levy growth factor, which is the CPI for December 31st, which was 1.26%. That's right there. We then subtract the 2.7 of the pilots for this year, and we get a tax levy before exclusions of $138,026,566. We then have exclusions, nothing in the torts and orders and judgments against the district, over 5% of the levy, which is good because that means we're not being sued for anything. The capital levy exclusion for next year, as you can see last year, the current year is 32, but for next year it goes up because the debt that we have for the bond and the energy performance contract is coming due next year in first payments, and I'll go through that in another slide. And what that is taking the debt and the capital projects that we have designated for the budget next year, and we subtract the building aid that they propose to give us, and we get this capital tax levy exclusion. So we add that number to the 138 million, and we get 142,757,183, which is the calculated tax levy limit for next year, and that is within the tax cap as it is the calculated limit. That represents a 4.8% increase in the tax levy. And a levy of that would then constitute, we need 50% of the vote plus one to pass the budget. The debt service and building aid this is a pretty good schedule that shows you the history here in the district. We've never had debt before. Going back to 11-12, you see we've had borrowing of TANs, which is tax anticipation notes. And we borrow that every year as a cash flow purpose for basically waiting for the tax money from Nassau County. And before we get that, we have to have money for operations. So in here, this is the interest that we paid on the borrowings. And coming down to 2014-15, you can see for the first year, we had something else, which was a technology lease purchase. So we had a little bit of debt here, and that was my second year here, actually, remember that. And then in 15-16, again, we had the TANs, and then we had the bond. So we had our first bond anticipation note, a BAN, where we borrowed money to start until we issued the actual bonds in the bond market. We took some BANs out to have cash to pay the contractors when they were starting. So we had to pay BAN interest of $440,000. And then the technology lease purchases, we had a little more in that year that we had to pay out. So as you can see, our debt was going up little by little here. And then this year, 16-17, we had the TAN interest. And then we had a little bit of BAN interest early in the year. We had to pay that off. And then we have more lease purchases this year through our initiative of the one-to-one devices between the smart bond and that is other technology items we're getting. So that's gone up. And then this year, we did have 1.8 million in bond, the first bond, because we borrowed in portions, 24,099,000 for the first borrowing, and then we borrowed the rest of it a year later. So coming up next year, you can see this bond payment of 1.8 is going up to 6.4 million. And then the energy performance contract, EPC, that first payment is due next year in the budget as well. That's 1.37. So in total, the debt for next year is 8,775. These are the numbers here that concern us, because these three plus the capital projects is what we use for the capital tax exclusion. And then we subtract the building aid we're getting for next year, which we've already reviewed, and that's how we come up to the exclusion. Just a little recall on the debt service for the energy performance contract that you just mentioned for next year, and every year it will be that number, $1,371,260. With that, as part of the contract, that should have no effect on the budget, because part of that is paid by the energy savings in the budget. So we're already, out of next year's, we have $676,000 in savings for the energy. And then on top of that, we will get building aid at our building aid ratio for the energy performance contract of approximately, well, of 695,229. So that is how the energy performance contract will work. Once we get the final state aid runs,
I want to go back and just highlight a few of this pieces. In terms of the energy performance contract, we did an analysis of, because New Hyde Park Memorial was finished in terms of electrical, so we went back to April of 2012. April 2012, we looked at the April electric bill for New Hyde Park Memorial. Why April 2012? Because shortly thereafter, we started the Synergistics Energy Conservation Program. And then most recently, this past year, we replaced all the LED lighting and installed the solar panels. So in April 2012, the electrical bill was $11,300. For April 2017, the electrical bill was $2,200. So that's approximate $9,000 saving in 1 month in one school. So when you do the math, you'll see how, particularly here, the energy savings, and if we save, which we hope we're going to, more than this, that money comes back into the operational budget for us to do other things and support student programs. The other thing I want to highlight is we said all along when we talked about state building aid that we would be approaching 50%. Well, it's not quite 50% yet, but it will when we finish submitting our submittals after the completion of the work. So of the 8.7 million, that much is being, almost 4.2 million is being supported by state building aid. So the state's paying for a significant amount of the projects that we're completing throughout the district. Originally, when the legislature came out with their budget, we had a $2.3 million budget deficit to get to cap. So with the board's approval, we offered a retirement center for teachers. It was actually a minor increase in the number of sick time they would get paid out for when they leave the district. As a result of that, we were able to recoup about $1.1 million in savings as a result of the number of teachers that took that retirement incentive. So, however, then when the governor's proposal came out for state aid, we still had to cut $1.17 million to get the cap. Once again, we were able to do that without impacting student program. We're reducing 6 teaching assistant positions. These are not teaching positions, teacher assistant positions that are in the classrooms. We're going to restructure how we're doing our residency investigations and our residency attendance in the schools. No one will lose a position. We already have 3 teaching assistant retirements, and annually we always get more than 3 teaching assistants that leave the district or are promoted within the district to teaching positions. Elmont Memorial, as you saw, the enrollment's slightly declining, so they have 4 deans. We're reducing them to 3. We're reducing athletic sessions, not eliminating them. These are extra hourly rates given to coaches to help out with junior high athletics, occasionally some of the high school athletics, and supervision of weight room, etc. And our athletic directors assure us that there's enough funding in the account after the cut to meet the needs of athletic programs. The Virtual Academy, which is the program where our students attend at Floral Park Memorial, when they are suspended for their, to maintain their educational program, we are going to incorporate that into our endurance alternative school program here, and that will save us $80,000. We're going to reduce one audiovisual helper position. That position is unfilled now, so we just won't fill it, so no one will lose a position. And we looked at the historical costs for contribution to pension and health care costs, so that's where we were able to close the gap. That's the good news this year. The bad news is, if we're in the same situation next year, in terms of lack of state support, our big fear is that we really don't have anywhere else to get creative. And we're getting very concerned about what's going to happen next year into the future in terms of preserving our student programs. This slide we show every year just to show how the health care fluctuates and how the retirement system fluctuates. Our contribution did decrease a little bit, so it helped us out. But you never know what this is going to do from year to year. So there's the proposed budget for 2017-18. Budget to budget increase is 4.85%, but I really need to emphasize that 74% of that increase is the debt service payment, which in May 2014, the public authorized the district to sell $86.3 million in bonds to do the work throughout the district. The work is going to be completed within a year, within budget, with the promise of building what we said we were going to build. Again, that just depicts that in terms of the budget increase and how much is the actual debt service and how much is the budget. But it's better on this slide. The operating budget increase is only 1.25%. So it's the debt service payment that is 3.60% of it. That debt service payment, since we've now borrowed all the money because we're doing all the work, is now, should the budget pass, will then be in the budget going forward, so we will not see the increase that we see going forward because that debt payment now is stable for the next 15 years.
You may recall that you've been getting a check from New York State the last 3-4 years, basically for the property tax freeze credit. And with that check, you were getting the increase in your taxes from the prior year. They would give that back to you, as long as your local government and your school district stayed within the tax cap. Well, that program has just ended, and as you might recall, this past December, this past fall, when you got your check, it was a larger number. What they did, they took the last property tax freeze payment of the increase in taxes and they added $130 to that. And you get that check, you got that check, and that program is now over. So beginning this year, they have a new credit, and that's new legislation that the state has passed, called property tax relief credit, not property tax freeze credit. And what it will be based on, not on your tax increase, but it will be right here, based on your STAR exemption, the homeowner's STAR exemption. It will be a percentage, and that will be based on the income of the household. So the lower the income the household is, the higher percentage you will receive as a benefit in a check back to you. So there are going to be 4 categories of that, and that will be phased in through 3 years. The categories are based on the income, as I said, and what will happen is, as the 3 years go on, those percentages will significantly increase each year. So how are you eligible? Same thing. The school district has to stay within the cap. You have to be eligible for basic or enhanced STAR property credit. And if you have the household income has to be $275 or less. And again, if it was more, you wouldn't be eligible for STAR. And it has to be your primary residence, and you're paying taxes on it in the jurisdiction of the district.
So again, the polls are open from 7 to 9 p.m., May 16th. I know that the budget scoop is already in people's homes. They they should have gotten the homes by Monday. If not, you can certainly call, we have additional copies. And again, we're continuing to maintain staff for program maintenance. And you know, it's been 6 years now for me, and it's incredible that we're still have the ability to say that, which I was very concerned about. I talked about that 6 years ago. I'm very, very concerned that next year we're going to be able to do that. Curricular programmatic needs are continuing to move forward. Purchasing new textbooks and instructional resources, increased support for our students with special needs. And one of the things I think everyone in all the communities will be proud of is the conditions of these buildings this time next year, because these buildings will be put into a condition that will last for years to come, years to come. So we'll go over there if anyone has any questions. Sorry, if anyone would like to ask questions, please come to the microphone, state your name and your address, and we'll be glad to answer your questions.
Felix Procacci, Franklin Square. Well, the usual thing I always say every year since you've been here, and probably before you've been here, is if you can't control the personnel costs, you know, that's it. You have to ask more from the personnel. The cost of the total cost, whatever it is, can't increase faster than that rate that the state is giving us each year. Because that's why you need the excess state aid, otherwise it doesn't work. I mean, all the presentations in the world is going to change that fundamental fact. I like that this was a very comprehensive video, a very comprehensive presentation. See, I said something good, Dr. Ferry.
Thank you very much.
I kind of mixed both these, the presentation with the iPad, that program that we have where I was at that summit, you know, for 3 or 4 hours that Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever, back in February 2016. We talked about the major purposes, collaboration. I think that the board's members who sit here need to collaborate with what happens here with their districts. This kind of presentation is very detailed. I like that. That needs to be transferred to other districts. You didn't have to read my mind. I really like the slide that really shows history, you know, things like that. And, you know, and more would be good, but this is much better than you get from most budget presentations that I've come through. Things like reserve levels would be nice, but I know your reserve levels are within the limits. I've checked them. One thing I like to see is, like you did this for the iPad, do a video of the budget presentation and put it on the website. And I copy that and put it on my website. When I put these videos on, I'm shocked to see, I only share it with a few Facebook pages, to see over 100 hits in just 24 hours. I mean, that's pretty amazing. I don't put any money in advertising it. Just people are interested, and I do get comments. And I think it's important that people who can't make this meeting make people more aware of what you're doing. From, you know, some people think that, you know, I'll tell you, a lot of people think that I waste my time coming here. That's what they think, and they say that. I don't think it's a waste of time. I think the more people that know about it, I think the better. What else is, the security, one thing about the security, and that's through the last item, I have 2 things. Security, once again, the guy sitting at the back door, where I went in, idling the car. I discussed this when we went through the bond presentation back in 2012, I think. That's not the way you secure a building. You need to actively patrol. People who are going to do something nefarious are going to do it. If they see a security guy there, they're just going to go around to another place where he's not there. You need to actively patrol. I mean, I went to my kids' high school in New Hyde Park, when she was going to Italy for the trip. And one kid was really good. She wouldn't let me in the door. She says, you have to go around to the security door,
That's good.
which was nice. But then I went around to that door, and someone else just let me in.
It's the nature of high school, though.
I understand. The thing is, the nature of security is actively patrolling, sitting at a desk. And I walked right in and went right by the security desk and said hi, and they didn't check any credentials or anything. Once again, do they know that I'm mean well or anything? Actively patrolling, looking for things, because you're not going to be able to patrol acres of land, which these campuses encompass, with a guy sitting at a desk. The way we patrol secure a building is actively patrol, looking for situations. Yes, you may miss one because you can't be everywhere, but you may catch one also. So, and also just the other thing is the grass. I noticed that the grass is being watered sometimes 10 o'clock in the morning, wrong time.
I'll check into that.
Yeah.
We've had some issues with the, if you may have noticed, we had a deep tine all the fields. That's where we put real deep holes for the drainage, but we are going to have some more dialogue about maintenance of those fields. So we'll talk about it.
Last summer, I was with my kid all summer working out at Sewanhaka, and we were laughing because, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it was 90 degrees, and the sprinklers were on. Then another time it was pouring rain, we had to go underneath the canopy there, and the sprinklers were running. There should be sensors, that's a standard.
There are, so I'll find
But they're not working, and we invested a lot of money in these fields, and it degrades them when you're not properly maintaining them, because it's a large area, so you have to do regular maintenance, otherwise, with my little plot of land, I have to stay on top of it to keep it green, keep the weeds away, to keep it looking good. With a big field, you have to really be more diligent. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you. See anyone else?
Who's the chairperson for that?
The chair.
That's it. You're the chair.
Entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session, see if we can close the text.
Motion to go into executive session to discuss particular personnel issues and litigation. This is Rose, second. This is Mitchell. All in favor? Thank you.